Alright, so John Cole with DiscountJuicers.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you. And in this episode, I'm going to do something that I should have done a long time ago. Is to make one of my famous how to use videos for the Kuvings C7000, the EVO, the CS600, CS700, even the older B6000. But if your juicer has a wide, 3-inch wide feed chute like the Kuvings does here, the Kuvings C7000 is my favorite model Kuvings. The EVO 820 is pretty much the same motor inside. The casing's different, and then the same screen, wiping blade, and the auger, although this feed chute is different. They all work pretty much the same way, and you should use these tips so that you are successful juicing. Now, if you're watching this video before you even bought a 3-inch wide vertical feed chute, congratulations to you. I want you guys to watch this video to learn how to use it, so you don't just say, oh, that has a 3-inch wide feed chute, it's automatically better than the ones with the smaller feed chute. Well, it may be, it can be, but not necessarily, and hopefully that's what I'm going to share with you guys in this episode. So this episode was prompted by a customer who actually wrote me an email. It's right here. And she bought an EVO 820 and is having some challenges with using it. So the first step I recommend for everybody to do, besides watching this video, is to watch a video I have on YouTube, and I'll post a link down below. It's called Juice Like a Pro in any vertical slow juicer. So any vertical slow juicer includes a 3-inch wide feed chute juicer, so you want to do all my practices that I share in that video. If you do all those practices, then you'll be successful with this machine. That being said, there's a few differences and nuances because this has a wide feed chute that's a little bit different. So make sure you watch that video, maybe even before you watch this one. Once again, the link is down below. But you're also going to want to take these tips that I showed you guys into consideration, okay? So basically, here's a story. One of my customers was having some challenges juicing certain recipes in her machine. She said there's a lot of excess leftover pulp, and maybe it was jamming or clogging, and I wasn't exactly sure the terminology she was using, because sometimes maybe she would put something in and it would just stop the juicer, and that's not necessarily bad. That's actually normal. That's so that the machine does not overload itself, but then you guys basically have to reset it by using flicking the reverse off and on. And every vertical juicer is going to do that, some more than others. I'm glad to say the Kuvings has a pretty good torque on it. The challenge is because this has a wider feed chute, it has to have more torque than other machines to basically grind up literally whole pieces of produce that most vertical juicers don't have to deal with because they have a smaller feed chute. But even then, the Kuvings can get stopped up or just literally stop, and I wouldn't call that a jam. A jam is when the outlet port gets clogged with produce and all the produce is building up inside. And if that's happening to you, then you're not following the instructions that I share with you guys in my Juice Like a Pro video, which includes cutting up certain produce items. Yes, even though this has a 3-inch wide feed chute, it doesn't mean you can just haphazardly stick anything into that feed chute, use the pusher, and push it in to get it juiced. Actually, no. That's what the manufacturer may want you to think, and if you're coming from a high-speed centrifugal ejection juicer like a Bravo with a 3-inch wide feed chute, that's how those machines are operated. But just because this has a 3-inch wide feed chute, this is a slow vertical juicer. You cannot just use the pusher to push everything in as fast as you could shove it in the hole. And especially if you're juicing things like celery or leafy greens. Very important, all celery and leafy greens should be pre-cut into 1/4 inch or I even say 1/8 inch pieces for best results. And now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, John, that defeats the purpose of having a 3-inch wide feed chute if I got to pre-cut the produce. Well, depends what you're juicing. So I said you got to pre-cut your greens. But if you're juicing things like, carrots, I got some carrots here somewhere, or apples, you don't need to pre-cut them. If you're juicing like whole oranges, you don't have to pre-cut them. Juicing beets, you don't have to pre-cut them, right? Things like broccoli, you should be pre-cutting because a stem has these fibers that could clog up and jam the juicer. Things like rutabagas or jicama, you just cut so that they actually fit in the feed chute, and no cutting into small pieces is necessary. You know, things like pears and strawberries and berries, no need to cut those guys. You could just drop them in the feed chute. That being said, another point that I'd like to make is that every juicer, every vertical juicer, you know, does require some kind of hard vegetable material to work properly, right? So if your recipes don't contain at least, I'd say to be safe, 50% root vegetables, such as carrots as one of your bases, or, you know, jicama, or something like that, like a good solid root vegetable, you know, and you're juicing a lot of fruits and or greens, it may not be the best juicer for you because you may need to adjust your recipe. You know, in some cases, like I use the commercial version of the Kuvings and I juiced 30 pounds of apples straight, and while that did work, it made a thicker, more saucy like juice, and I had a lot of backup in the feed chute because the apples were soft and mealy. So that's another tip right there, and I want you guys to take notes. When you guys go to buy produce to juice, you want to select the firmest and the freshest produce. Very important if you're selecting apples to juice, right? Don't get apples that you could pick up and in the store you could put your fingers into and dent. These are old apples. They're soft. They're mealy. They're not going to juice well. They're going to create a lot of pulp in your juice. The slow juicers turn those into a sauce instead of a juice, whereas you have nice, firm, crisp apples that are nice and hard that you can't push your finger into. Those ones are going to juice better. And a tip for you guys, like I picked out today, always choose the Granny Smith apples. The Granny Smith apples generally tend to keep their texture better and juice better and not make as much sauce as other kinds of apples, such as like maybe galas or something like that, right? So that's very important. If you're juicing fruits, you know, get the hardest, firmest fruits. Now that's kind of almost counterintuitive because to eat fruits, we want the soft fruits, the ones that are ripe. But when we're juicing them, we want them hard and firm because soft items just kind of mush up in the juicer, in the vertical juicers, and they don't juice well. And so that's why with every something soft, you need to rotate something in hard. So that's why, you know, I got carrots here in this recipe, and we're going to share with you guys some other recipes, right? The other thing is, while you do need to pre-cut your greens, and while they do give you guys a pusher, on other vertical juicers, I say don't even use a pusher. On the Kuvings, it's a little bit different because in some cases you need to use the pusher to kind of like not push the produce items in, but just to unclog and unjam things that are not properly going down and getting juiced. Now, another thing the manufacturer's not going to tell you, although it does have a 3-inch wide feed chute, you know what I've noticed in this style machine, because of this housing here, sometimes there'll be a lot of excess pulp in the top part of this housing that doesn't get funneled in through gravity into the juicer to get juice when you're done. And that's one of the downsides of this style machine, so you may be giving up some yield. Now, some ways to circumvent that is when you're done juicing, you could close the spout cap, and then you could take some kind of water or coconut water and basically pour it up to fill this whole cavity up with water, and then that liquid will kind of like drain down into here. It'll kind of grind up the remaining produce inside, and then you could open this, and then you'll basically have coconut water extracted with the rest of your juice if you don't want to waste anything. You know, so that's one tip for you guys there. I guess, let's see, what other tips do I have? Oh yeah, don't feed things in too quickly. Let the machine, time to work, they're just like, you know, rapid fire, like I put an apple in there, boom, put a carrot in there, boom. You know, you got to drop something in, let the machine work. These are called slow juicers after all. They grind up the produce at a slow rate to basically extract all the rich goodness without all that high-speed oxidative damage that in scientific published studies lowers those antioxidant compounds in the juices that you make. And in a laboratory study with animals, which I do not agree with, you know, the animals fed the high-speed juice didn't get the health benefit that the animals fed the low-speed juice did. And I cover that in a video. If I remember, I'll put the link down below. Basically, science about juicing. There are published scientific journal studies about juicing and different juicers and the benefits that you can get from drinking fresh juices, all right? So I guess without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this episode. So I had the customer basically email me a recipe, and so her recipe is 30% greens, 40% carrots, and 30% apple. So that's pretty much what I got here. I got 3 apples, and I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 carrots, and I got a bunch of greens from my garden. These happen to be, I think, cabbage greens for the most part that we're going to be juicing. So before you just start taking the produce, and it's already washed and prepped, and throwing it in the machine, you got to prep it first. So on the apples and the carrots, you know, no prep work is necessary. Oh, except I did take out the stems of the apples, very important. And I did cut off the tops and the bottoms of the carrots because the bottoms and the tops usually are kind of funky. And yeah, I'm not going to juice those. And so the next step is we got to take all the greens here. So generally I just like to take all the greens and just line them up like a deck of cards, right? Like one on top of each other. Just like this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do what's called a chiffonade technique. So I'm not a chef and I don't claim to be one, or I don't play one on YouTube. But basically, from what I understand, a chiffonade technique is when you take a bunch of greens like this and then you roll it up like this into like a big sushi roll. And then you can take the greens and then you're going to take your knife and we're just going to cut it. And I try to go every 1/8 inch, but if you don't get an 1/8 and you hit a 1/4, I'll take that. But the goal is to kind of hit every 1/8 of an inch. You want to chop it up against the grain, not with the grain. Because it's these grains or the fibers, you know, that's the strings that get stuck in your teeth when you're eating celery. It's those very fibers that'll kind of mess the vertical juicers up. All except one vertical juicer that I'm aware of, basically, as the produce goes in the machine to come out this, you know, pulp port, the produce has to go down and has to make a right angle turn, right? And I don't know if you ever made right angle turns, but they can be a pain. But especially if you're not pre-cutting your greens, the fibers or the strings in the stems specifically, and even to a lesser extent in the leaves, can make the turn, but then the strings jam up or clog up the passageway. It's like if there's an accident on the freeway, right? And then once there's an accident on the freeway, nobody can get by, and there's traffic, and then you're stuck in traffic. And hopefully this hasn't happened in LA if you live in LA or New York City, because you can be there for hours. Well, if you get a pulp blockage in your outlet port, right, just like a traffic jam, right, it's not going to clear up on its own. They got to call the cops to get in there. They got to call the tow truck. And on this, right, it's going to be really difficult. It's going to make your juicer really hard to disassemble. In addition, it's going to put excess pulp in your juice, because if the pulp's not coming out into the pulp collection bin where it should go, it's got to go somewhere. It's going to go in the juice. It's going to get forced up. It's going to make your housing, your top housing, very difficult to remove. So, you know, if you don't want to do these things and pre-cut your greens like I did here, that's all right. Don't get a vertical juicer, right? I have heard, and this is the first time I'm mentioning this, and I don't know if I should be, but I have heard that Kuvings is working on a wide feed chute horizontal juicer that's going to hopefully come out later this year if we're lucky, all right? So any case, so then you want to go with a horizontal if you don't want to like pre-cut these guys, because horizontals, you put the produce in and then basically the produce has a straight shot to come out, you know, so that's what I'd recommend. At present time, my favorite horizontal auger juicer is the NC800, all right? So anyways, let's go ahead and get juicing. So the first step when juicing in the Kuvings or any other vertical juicer is I always encourage you guys to open up your juice flap. This is great to stop drips on the counter, but it's bad to do mixing in the unit, in my opinion, because then, you know, the juice is basically swimming around in all the pulp, the dry pulp that should be coming out, so the pulp that comes out is a little bit wetter from my personal experience. All right, so now that we have all this produce prepped, the next thing is you want to go ahead and think about, okay, what am I juicing? What is the order going to be? All right, you're going to kind of assess. Wow, I have lots of greens here. I have a couple carrots and a couple apples. So my plan is you always want to put the softest stuff in first, followed by the hardest stuff. So in this case, you know, we're going to go ahead and put the greens in, and maybe an apple followed by a carrot, and like proportionately. So we have like 3 apples. We're going to maybe put not quite a third of the greens, but maybe a fourth or a fifth of the greens in, 1 apple and then a carrot. And we always want to follow the softer stuff being the greens or the apple with the carrot. So what does this mean? This means you may have to adjust your recipes. If you have like a whole bunch of greens and 1 carrot, guys, that's probably not going to cut it in a vertical juicer. Maybe you could get away with it, but, you know, for sanity's sake and your sake, right, adjust your recipe accordingly. Add a few more carrots, right? And if you got to, use smaller carrots instead of big ones, I got a super big fat one here because we're going to see if we can get this machine to stop on me because I want to show that for you guys. And so you may need to adjust your recipes, to work with the juicer so that you get the best performance out of it, okay? And same thing if you're juicing something like cucumbers. Cucumbers are something soft that may tend to back up and clog up in this housing port here. The softer things, like the apples, tend to not go through the machine, as well as the carrots. So that's why ordering is important. So I'm going to put a handful of this, an apple, and then a carrot, and then just keep repeating that process until I'm done. So let's go ahead and get started and show you guys how we're going to do it. So we're going to turn this machine on, and we're going to take a bunch of the leaves here. We're just going to drop in the machine. And now see, I'm putting them in, and they don't really go in there. So we can put a little bit more, and they don't really go in because there's like a blockage thing. So now we got to use that pusher, and we're only using the pusher because they're not going in on their own. And we use the pusher here that I got to line up properly to kind of push these in the machine. So once I got them past that blockage point, you could hear these greens in the machine and processing. I could visually see them through the smoke housing, which is a little bit difficult. And I'm not going to add anything else until I don't see any more greens in this little chamber area, right? You can also see the pulp is coming out really nice and the juice is coming out. Next, maybe we're going to go ahead and take some of these stems. The stems work to help push the softer leaves through, and the stems don't get jammed. They juice a lot nicer and are a lot more juicy than the leaves part. So once again, the little bits of stem. Now we're going to go ahead and throw an apple in there, and let's see if it fits in this 3-inch feed chute. Yes, it does. It gets stuck up by this blocker, something that you guys on the EVO A20 will not have. You guys just dunk it in. You don't have the inconvenience of pushing this guy in because it has the wide feed chute here. So we're going to push it past the blocker, and then we just leave it sitting in there. We don't push it all the way in. That's very important. Don't take this and shove it all the way in there, because if you do, then you may be feeding things in too quick. The machine has been designed so that the apple won't sit there forever in most cases, and it's going to grab it and chunk it through. So you guys can see it got the apple, and now we got the apple pulp coming out. Now we're going to go ahead and take one carrot. We got a small carrot, dropping that carrot right in there. No cutting the carrot necessary, and look at that, it's chunking up the carrot. Very important. Once again, we put the carrot in. We're not just putting the next thing in, because if you get too much stuff in there, you're going to get too much pulp collection in this top housing area, right? We're taking our time. Next, we're going to go ahead and put a little nest of greens in there. Once again, these greens kind of get stuck up in this feed chute here. So we're going to take our pusher here, and the pusher's only being used to push the greens so that it doesn't get blocked up, right? Then we take the pusher out. We're letting the machine process the greens. We're not going to add anything else until the majority of the greens are not in this little chute area that we could see. In addition, a good sign to know when you could add the next thing is when the pulp stops flowing out. I mean, that's the point that you should really be adding something, because now you're almost wasting time, in my opinion. We got it mostly juiced, so I feel secure to maybe add some more of these little stems here. And I want you guys to pay attention to the noise or the tone of the juicer as it's working. It has different tones depending on what you're juicing. And some things it kind of stresses out on, and some things it doesn't. So next we're going to go ahead and put an apple in there, and once again push this past this little blockage thing, and we're letting it sit up on the top there. And it may take a little bit, but sure enough, the Kuvings basically just chunks off piece by piece at its own pace, very important, and it just processes and gets the apples. Another reason why I like to put the apples in after the greens is that the apple juice, if it's very watery, it tends to wash out that green juice into the collection cup. Next, let's go ahead and put another carrot, just dropping a carrot in there. Let's see if it can handle this without stopping. And it is without issue. Now, once again, we're not taking the pusher to push that carrot in. It's not needed. All vertical juicers should gravity feed for the most part, right? Once again, we're waiting. This is very important, right? These are slow juicers, they're not high-speed juicers. You could get a high-speed juicer and probably be done with this recipe already, but then you're going to lose the valuable phytonutrients, and you may not get the health benefits that you're desiring. All right. Next, we're going to go ahead and put in another handful of those greens here. And we're going to have to use a pusher to kind of push them past this little blocker. Here, once again, we're just pushing the greens in past the blocker, and we're gonna let it run a little bit. No big deal. So, you know, I think it's very important to, you know, take your time when juicing, right? To me, juicing is the meditation, chopping up everything, dropping things in. In many cases, sometimes I'm chopping as I'm waiting for it to run, or I'm washing, or I'm tossing my carrots that have in a big pile, you know, so yeah. So, okay, it's run all that through. Now we're going to put a handful of the little stems in there. Once again, we're kind of trying to shift up the textures. This is the leaf texture, this is the stem texture. And then once we got that going through there, it pretty much processed that pretty quick. We're going to go ahead and put the apple in there. Apple fits pretty much right in there. 3-inch wide feed chute. The EVO actually has a larger feed chute, which is nice. We got it past that little safety cutout thing. And once again, this is just grabbing that apple, sucking it in. It's working with no problem. The pulp continues to flow out. If the pulp stops at any point and is not flowing, free flowing as you're juicing, and juice is coming out, then that is a signal that you have a problem because the pulp is getting blocked for some reason. Maybe you didn't take off the one apple stem, maybe you didn't pre-cut the greens well enough, you know, so that's a sign that maybe you're not using the right technique and taking your time when juicing. All right, what did I put in last? I think I put that apple in, so now we're going to put another carrot in there. We're going to put another thin carrot, drop that carrot. Should happen with no problem in the Kuvings. And you know, when you guys go to select your produce at the store, I want you guys to select produce that's going to juice well. You know, generally the thinner diameter carrots that aren't super fat, right? They juice better. So when you buy a bag of carrots, try to get the ones that are a little bit thinner, right? They're going to juice better because they're not going to stop the machine up, right? And once again, we're not just chunking in one thing after another. We're letting the machine time to work. So once again, we got that carrot in there. Next thing we're going to put in is a big handful of greens. Once again, always better to have more carrots than greens in your recipe, if at all possible. If you don't want to use carrots, use something like peeled jicama that has a nice neutral flavor that is also a nice pusher vegetable. You could even use something like sweet potatoes to juice as well. So once again, we got those the greens in there. We're letting that run. I can see a few of the greens is actually wrapped around the auger, and it's not going in the machine, but that's all right. You know, that's part of the wide feed chute vertical juicer thing. Oh, and we're out of apples, so now we can't put any more apples in after that. So what we're going to do is now we're going to go ahead and just put in basically a handful of those stems right now. That's the next thing that we've normally been putting in. We're going to let that work a little bit, and you guys can see all the greens are coming out without any problem. So we're just kind of taking our time. Next, after that all processed, I could use a carrot to kind of like help shove down some of the greens that I kind of see in this little chute area and shove it in the juicer. Then we can take that carrot, always put the carrot, the thick end side in first, drop it in there, and let you get grinded up without issue. So these carrots are pretty fresh, and even though you might have carrots this diameter, you know, if they're more dry, they may not have a lot of juice. So if you live on like the East Coast where they're having to ship the produce from California, where most carrots are grown, out to the East Coast, you know, they may be in a warehouse a couple extra days and they get really more hard, and that may have a tendency to basically stop the juicer up from working, that this carrot may do. All right, last thing is we got another handful of the greens going in, so we're going to let those process. And finally, we have just a little bit more of the stems with those greens left over. So we're just going to go ahead and get a handful of this, and we're going to get ready to push those, drop them in the juicer. Once again, you know, for the most part, we're not really having to use that pusher too much. And I don't encourage you guys to use a pusher on any vertical juicer if you don't have to, all right? So those greens went in without a hitch. Once again, I am seeing some of those little pieces of greens stuck on the top of the auger that did not get juiced, right? And we're going to give the juicer a little bit of time to catch up with juicing everything it is. Now the Kuvings juicer, you know, this is a good heavy-duty motor. The Kuvings has a 30-minute duty cycle, which means you should run the juicer for no more than 30 minutes straight, constantly, at a time. Although that's what the manufacturer recommends, and then allow it to cool down if you want to use it more. I have run it for up to an hour at a time, but I do not recommend doing that necessarily. All right, the last produce item you always want to juice is something hard and firm. In this case, we have a carrot, and we have the fattest diameter carrot out of the bag of carrots that I bought. So let's go ahead and drop this in, and let's see if it causes the machine to stop. All right, it's not dropping in, so we're gonna have to push it down a little bit. It's too fat. All right, there it goes. All right, yeah, so this, to me, is not a jam. Basically, the carrot's too fat. It caused too much load on the motor. It stopped the machine. Totally normal. This could happen on every vertical juicer. If you want this to not happen, once again, pick out smaller diameter carrots, or if you have wide ones, tall ones, cut them down the center lengthwise so that they're not as fat. If this happens, not a big deal. There's an on-off switch right here, so you're going to hit it to turn it to off. Then you're going to hit it reverse. It's going to back it up a little bit. Take a little bit of make those carrots come backwards up. And then you're going to go ahead and hit forwards. And then it's just going to run fine. No big deal. Oh, and it stopped again. Oh my God, I'm freaking out. No, don't worry. This is totally normal. Happens to the best of us. Reverse it out a little bit. Do it again. Oh, stopped again. That's all right. Reverse it and do it again. Hit it forwards. Now we got the jam all cleared out, and we're just going to go ahead and let it run. So the most important thing on any vertical slow juicer is when you are done juicing and add in that last item, right? Make sure you give the juicer some time to work. Don't just, I put the last thing in, okay, I'm done, turn it off. Because if you turn it off, then you're going to have lots of excess pulp left inside the machine, right? When I juice, I'm letting the machine run. If you guys look at this outlet port here, pulp is still flowing. If I turn the machine off now, this is all pulp that would have never came out of the machine. That would be pulp that would be inside the machine that would have to clean out, that would not be extracted. So you want to let the machine run even a couple extra minutes after you add that last item in, because it's literally catching up with juicing the last item you put in. And I'm not going to time how long this is taking, but I'm filming this in real time. I'm not going to edit this part of the video, right? So we're going to go ahead and clear this out, and we're going to see, if any more pulp is flowing or if it's stopped. All right, so it looks like it's moving ever so slowly, but for all practical purposes, the pulp has stopped flowing, and Elvis has left the building. All right, so when Elvis leaves the building or the pulp stops flowing, that's your sign to turn off the machine. Now the next tip is you might want to go ahead and hit reverse on the machine a little bit, and then hit forward again and see if you can get any more pulp to come out. Sometimes you will, and in this case we're not. Now the other thing you guys could do if you wanted to get more extraction out of the pulp that's in there, and I'm not going to do this today, you could close a little chute there, and once again you could take some coconut water, some purified water, pour that in there up to the mark here, I think it's like 400 milliliters, and then turn the machine on and basically let the water kind of sift through there. The water will pick up all that carrot pulp residue and the juice, and then you open this up, and then you have basically a water infused with like carrot juice or carrot essence is what I like to say. You could also use this technique just to clean the machine. Just put water in here and run the water through there, and then empty out the water that you would then pour on your plants or down the sink, and that would help clean out this center area as well. All right, so we have a nice juice, maybe about 800 milliliters of juice right there. And now I want to go ahead and take apart this machine to show you guys how much pulp was left inside the machine, all right? So pulling this machine apart, you guys can see we have a little bit of pulp left in there. That's totally normal. The amount of pulp left may vary depending on how you're using the machine, how you're letting things feed, and the produce item. So here's the thing. The only reason I have this much pulp is left in the top is because when I put that fat carrot in last, and I should have probably put it in first, and I did the reverse, that brought up some of the carrot shreds up into the top of the, up into this part of the housing. Otherwise, it would have been less, all right? So I will learn from this, and like next time, I'll juice the fat carrots first, all right? Next here, we can pull out the auger here. So on the auger here, you can see we have definitely some carrot pulp left over on there, and I would consider this totally normal. Totally normal. And then inside the screen here, once again, we got a bunch of pulp leftovers in there. And once again, I would consider that totally normal. This is not outside the ordinary for vertical juicers, right? And then inside here, we don't really have too much pulp or juice left over, and that's what I like about the Kuvings, because this has a sealed bottom on the screen. The pulp is basically left in the screen, and that's why this screen will actually have more pulp than other vertical juicers will. All right, and so that's how it worked on this recipe. To me, this recipe worked perfectly. Like, yeah, we had a little bit of left in there, but if you took your time, the recipe worked great for me. I think I'm gonna do a quick clean, and I'm just gonna clean out the screen here real quick, and I think I won't even clean the auger, and I'll come back at you when we're ready to do the next recipe. All right, so we got that screen nice and clean, almost like new here. Got a little bit of pulp left in there, but it'll be all right. And we're gonna go ahead and reassemble the machine. So once again, to assemble this machine, there's a red dot here. You got to line up with the red dot on the bowl. Before you do that, you got to take the wiping blades and shove that on there. Then we're going to line up the red dot here, red dot here. It just basically drops into place. And I would not be reassembling this if I had a pulp blockage, right? It'd be generally a good idea to clean all the pulp out of the pulp port, but I know I did not have a blockage, so I feel confident in basically using the machine over again. That being said, in most cases, if you are changing recipes, I do encourage you guys to basically wash the entire machine out so that you can have a higher probability and level of success. I'm actually kind of lazy. All right, so let's go ahead and reassemble this top set here. And now this pulp, let's just go ahead and push this down nice and deep so I have more room in my container here. And now the next recipe that I'll be making, we get a new collection jug right here, is this. And on the sheet that I got written I wasn't exactly clear on it, but it says oranges and 1 small beet and half a piece of ginger. So if you were to add these ingredients to the previous recipe, you would want to rotate these in. So maybe before the apple, I would put the orange, and then I'd throw the beet in there maybe right before the carrot. And then the ginger in the bottom, we will need the pre-cut, but I'm going to juice this recipe just like this. And this, in my opinion, is not an ideal recipe for a vertical juicer. There's not a lot of pusher vegetables, although it may work, all right? So we got 4 oranges. I basically skinned off or peeled off the covering or the orange part. Oranges, tangerines, and grapefruits, the coloring of the fruit should be taken off, but if you have lemons or limes, you could juice those whole with the skin and all. And then I have 1 beet that I probably will cut in half, although we don't have to. Get it? We don't have to. But I will. And then on the ginger, even though this is only a, inch piece nub, we got to cut it against the grain. So we're going to cut it in 1/4 inch pieces against the grain, because the fiber in the ginger could basically block the ejection port. And if you just do one thing wrong, like have 1 stem of an apple or a ginger you didn't pre-cut, that could basically just mess up the juicer and then ruin the whole recipe, right? And cause a pulp blockage and cause excess pulp in your juice, okay? So in this recipe, since we only have beets, oranges, and ginger, how are you guys going to juice it, right? Well, I'm probably going to put in 2 oranges, and then I'm probably going to put a half a beet in there, because that's going to help push everything through. And actually, before I put the beet in there, I'm probably going to put the ginger first, actually. So I'm going to put the ginger first, and then I'm going to put the oranges, because the oranges will kind of help wash through that ginger juice into my collection cup. And then I'm going to follow with a beet, and then I'm going to do the last 2 oranges followed by another beet. So let's see how this works, because I don't know, all right? I do have some backup carrots, because the carrots are always a solution to the machine not working well. Is add a carrot to it in the middle or near the end, and it's generally going to work better, all right? So let's see, I'm going to put in maybe half of that ginger in there. I'm going to go ahead and put 1 orange in there. Once again, we got to use this pusher only to push it past this little blockage thing, safety thing. If you have the EVO, you would just dunk it in there, and we're going to let that orange just basically just grind up and suck down. Now, in something like soft, like an orange, you're generally going to see maybe more pulp residue collected inside the machine when you're done. We're going to go ahead and take the next orange, put it in there. Once again, we got to use this pusher to push it past the blocker there. And once again, we're not pushing it all the way in. We're letting the machine, accept it at its own time and pace. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and put in half of that beet, which drops right in. And you can hear the machine crunching up on that beet. Sometimes when you put a beet in, especially if it's an old beet, you know, it may stop the machine like it did on that carrot before. Totally normal, totally alright. Once again, just play that reverse switch, turn it reverse, turn it forward, turn it reverse. It'll work through it, and you can continue to juice. Next, let's go ahead and put in the last bits of the ginger there. And let's go ahead and drop in another orange. Let that process, give it a minute or two. I really like how we use something watery after something like the beets, because that orange juice that's really watery, and the beets aren't as watery, helps to kind of like dilute that beet juice down so we get all that goodness in our glass. Because to me, the beets are a lot more valuable than the orange. So in that case, what I'm going to do, because I want to get that beet juice rinsed out in the cup, we're going to go ahead and take the rest of that beet and drop it in and let the machine process it. Normally it'd be better actually to put the beet in last, because that would help push the orange through, but I want to make sure I get the most of the beet juice, because I have a lot more oranges because they're actually a lot cheaper than the beets. So I want to make sure I get all the delicious and nutritious beet juice into my glass. And then once that is done processing, we're going to go ahead and take that last orange and drop it in the machine. So this recipe looked like it worked fairly well, right? No problems whatsoever. We just got to make sure we order things properly and think about when you're juicing, you know, think about, if I juice it in this order, what will happen? And if you juice it in that order one time, it works great. Hey, then do it again like that. And if you juice it in that order another time and you think you may have done it a different way, or you should have done it a different way, next time juice it a different way. That's what I love about the juicers, right? They give you time and a place to experiment and have fun in your kitchen. Every time I juice, and I juice pretty much almost every day, I juice something different. I juice different recipes. I make up recipes based on what I have that I bought that's organic and what's growing in my garden. And I get to experiment. And that's how I learn how to use the juicers. So I want you guys to be a learning creature, right? We have the most powerful supercomputers, you know, that we have free and clear in our brains. So I want you guys to use those to kind of like, hey, I juiced it like this and it did it like this, and I juiced it like that and it did it like this, and you'll learn, like, once you get, because once again, with any new appliance, whether it's you're driving for the first time, if you get in your car and you put it in drive and hit the accelerator down and up, down and up, down and up, down and up, you know what's going to happen. You're going to jerk the car like that, right? It's not going to be smooth, right? I want you guys to run the juicer smoothly, and if you follow the procedures and, you know, ways I use the machine, then you're going to have the same exact result as well. All right. So once again, the pulp stopped flowing. We're done. We could turn it off. We reversed it a little bit. Turn it back on. And no pulp is flowing, so that's a good sign. Let's see. Sometimes I like to actually tip this machine up a little bit. And the orange juice, you know, especially because we're juicing with that white pith, is going to be a little bit more creamy or thick than orange juice that you're just literally pressing out the orange water. That actually does not have as much nutrition as if you're juicing the pith. So I want to show you guys actually what's left in here. Be forewarned, I did not clean this up after the last time, so you guys can see a little bit of the beet stuff left in there. And inside here we got, you know, some of that more thicker beet-orange juice mixture that did not come out. It's almost getting like a smoothie-like consistency in there. That's totally fine. Next we got the auger coming up, and the auger has a little bit less items on it this time than last time. And then finally the juicing bowl, and you guys can see the juicing bowl has a fair bit amount of produce in there, and that is just totally considered normal for the Kuvings, so don't be alarmed. All right. So the next recipe that I want to do for you guys today is actually we're going to go ahead and make a smoothie, because I think the customer tried to make a smoothie, and I'm going to explain that. So up to now we're using the juicing screen. So this is a juicing screen. It's normally used for vegetables, but if you want to make a fruit juice like strawberries and apples, it would also work for that as well. It has small holes, and it lets the pulp out of this pulp outlet port here, you know, as you are juicing. And that's the goal of the juicing screen, to basically make a juice, not a smoothie. And we're just going to go ahead and clear out some of this pulp out of this ejection port, so it's mostly clear, because I want to be able to show you guys this, because we are not going to wash this machine like I should be doing to switch recipes. I always encourage you guys, once again, when you are switching recipes, wash the machine in between. So yeah, this is the juicing screen. It's the yellow color, and what we'll be using now is we're going to be using this one. This is known as a smoothie screen. So on first look, if you guys look at this, aside from this being dirty, it's like, oh, that's the same. It has larger holes. Now the major difference is on the bottom, this has a hole where the pulp comes out, which is right here. And on this unit, there's a little plug there. And furthermore, even if you open this up, this is a solid piece of plastic. So it does not allow any pulp to come out. So you're literally nothing's going to come out of this. So that means anything that comes out has to go through these holes and then into your cup. So once again, we're going to go ahead and put that wiping blade on. And we're going to line this up, red dot to the red dot. We're going to go ahead and put the auger in there. Maybe we'll wipe some of that pulp out of the auger there. And then we're going to go ahead and throw that in there. We can even move this pulp catch bin, because I'm going to show you guys actually what happens. And we're going to go ahead and put our top on. And now we're going to go ahead and move this juice out of the way, and we're going to go ahead and make a smoothie. Or as my 10-year-old nephew would say, smoothie. My nephew says smoothie instead of smoothie. He's so cute. All right, so what we have today for this, because I think the customer originally used a pear, a bunch of baby spinach, a handful of strawberries. I don't exactly have pears right now, and I didn't want to waste my spinach on this recipe. So what I have one apple, which is like a pear. I have a bunch of strawberries, actually 1 pound of organic strawberries, and I have a whole bunch of fresh picked mint out of my garden. No better way to use your mint than to juice it and get the nutrition out of it, all right? And then we're going to have our collection cup right here. And then if you're making a smoothie, you need to have a liquid with the smoothie. If you don't have a liquid with the smoothie, it's not going to work, right? Because you're not making a juice. The juice is going to flow out, and because the smoothie is going to be thick, unless you maybe add a lot of apples at the end, and then there'll be a lot of pulp inside the machine, as I'll show you guys. You got to have some liquid in there to get it to work properly. So what I'll be using today for my liquid is the Taja coconut water. This is unpasteurized raw coconut water that has never been heat treated, and it's from India, and it's the closest thing that I've ever tasted to coconuts that's fresh out of a coconut in a bottle. This is the best stuff by far. Can't be hard to find. Anyways, so now we're going to go ahead and make the smoothie recipe. Now in the smoothie recipe, when using the smoothie strainer, you're going to use things a little bit differently. You're going to have a different ordering. And then in the smoothie, when you're making the smoothie, you want to put the most watery thing in last. So to me, the mint is not that watery. And the strawberries, they're pretty watery, but I want to put those in second to last. I want to put the apple in last, because the last item you put in is what I would call well, some people don't like me saying the sacrificial lamb, so I apologize if you guys are offended by that term, because I had a customer that was offended by that term. But I don't know really any other term to say. But basically, the last item you put in may not get juiced and or may not, get all the nutrients out of it, but is there to basically push the other nutrients through the screen. So that's why I mention it like that, all right? And I apologize if I offended anybody by saying that term. No offense was meant, all right? So let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead, in this case, we're going to put in all the mint first, right? We're going to take a little bit of the Taja coconut water, and we're going to pour that in, kind of help get that mint in there. We're going to go ahead and take some of these strawberries and drop a couple strawberries in there. And what's happening is the strawberries are kind of getting pushed through the screen, the mint's getting pushed through the screen, and the coconut water sitting in there, so you can kind of see that we got a liquid kind of sitting and spinning in there. So the goal of the smoothie strainer is to let the fine particles out of the smoothie strainer into the bowl here, and basically we're kind of like, instead of blending it up at high speed, which I'm not a fan of high speed non-vacuum blenders because they can't oxidize the nutrition, this is basically a low RPM smoothie. You know, the more you let the machine run, the more it grinds up, the better smoothie you're going to have actually in this case. So we got almost all our mint put in the machine there. Next, we're going to go ahead and just kind of put in a bunch of those strawberries. And on this, because pulp is not coming out, as you guys can see, it's staying in the machine. You don't have to be as concerned about putting things in as fast as possible. You could drop things in a little bit quicker, although you still want to let it process past the auger. You know, you don't want to just cram things in like super fast and have a pulp blockage or pulp backup. And be forewarned, you know, when you are making a smoothie, you can't use like unlimited ingredients. You want to, you know, if your smoothie starts to get high like this up in here, what does that tell me? That tells me that, you know, then I'm getting near the peak of the capacity of the bowl here, which you shouldn't go much past this line, which is 400 milliliter. Maybe you want to let a little bit out and then close it back up again so you can continue to make that smoothie. And then we're going to go ahead and throw more strawberries in there. Let those process. Man, this is going to be a really good drink. This is like strawberry, apple, mint smoothie. So we're literally grinding up those strawberries, getting extraction from them. We're going to let out some more of that liquid. We're going to go ahead and close that up. And so we're kind of keeping it around, like I think it's a 200 mark. We're going to go ahead and put a couple more of those strawberries in our one rolled piece of mint. And then we got an apple here. So this apple, guess what? Even though we got an apple, and this is 3-inch wide feet chute, it doesn't fit because this is a deluxe Fuji size apple I got at the Asian market. Because those Asians, well, I'm Asian, they know good Fuji apples and they like the big ones. So I got to cut this one up into like quarters here. Oops, and I got a bruised part here, so I'm going to cut off that bruised part. So I don't want the bruised part going in my smoothie. Alright, so now we can just go ahead and chunk in that apple. A quarter of the apple, give it a little bit of time to work, and we're going to go ahead and cut out some of the bruises here on this apple here. Go ahead and dump in a little bit more of that apple. And as you guys can see, we're getting up to 400. And this time we're going to let it go a little bit higher. You never want to let it go past the little maybe textured portion of the bowl here, which it is not. And let's see, we're going to go ahead and make sure the apple kind of gets processed and sucked into the machine. It's getting stuck up at the top. And so we're going to just use a pusher to kind of like help guide it down in the machine so it gets fully ground up. Oh, and in this case, we are getting some kind of like pulp blowback that's not going in. So that tells me that there's too much liquid in there. So we got to lower that a little bit. And now we're going to go ahead and cut off a little more of my... Wow, man, this apple's not so good. It has lots of bruises in there. I did a bad job. All right, and this is a Fuji apple this time. A little bit sweeter than the Granny Smiths because I'm putting in a smoothie. And we're going to dunk that in there. And we're just going to go ahead and leave the little pusher in there. Now, be forewarned, when you are making a smoothie, you will have backup in the top housing, unlike when you're juicing, because the pulp is just sitting inside the machine. Next, we're going to go ahead and take that coconut water. Always very important to do this last. And that's going to help pour down into the machine and help kind of get some of this pulp that's stuck up at the top into the machine here. And so you guys can see, we're going to go ahead and let some of this nice smoothie out. Close that back up, and we're going to go ahead and take the rest of the coconut water and you know, let it run down in the machine there. So what's happening now is that the machine is grinding up everything. It's trying to force it out the holes. If it's forcing out the holes, then it'll be in this outer chamber, which then we are releasing when we put it in here. And if the things are not going down, then maybe your inner chamber is totally full. So maybe you need to do a little bit better, or you need to like let it run a little bit. So I have lots of excess, you know, liquid and pulp inside the chamber up at the top. That's actually very slowly, if at all, going through the little holes, right? So maybe this recipe had too many ingredients, or I put too many strawberries. Maybe I should have used 8 ounces of strawberries instead of 16 ounces. Maybe I should have used half the mint. Because when you are making a smoothie, you know, you need to adjust your recipe accordingly. And honestly, I don't use a smoothie function in this machine. I personally think it's a little bit of a gimmick. It is kind of nice what it does. because there's no other machine that'll kind of do it like this. But I personally would rather use a vacuum blender such as the Kuvings vacuum blender to blend, because you do have a lot of wastage that's inside the center auger that never comes out, which is what's happening here. So in this case, I mean, things are still trickling out. I think what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and close that and see how much actually comes out if we just let this sit a while. And this is the thing about a low RPM smoothie. It's a low RPM. It can take a while. You know, we closed the smoothie spout up, and now we're getting a residual backup, and some of the stuff is coming out of the chamber here. So we're just going to let it sit there and run a while. And actually, while we're waiting, I'm going to drink part of the smoothie. Alright, I've never made this smoothie before in my life, and this is coconut water, mint, strawberry, apple smoothie. Look at that nice thick texture, you know, compared to a juice, you know, that if I had to pour this out, you know, it's a lot thinner texture here. Alright, to your health. Man, that's good. I like that recipe. I'm glad I made it. Oh yeah, look at this, man. So if we let it run a while, before we know it, it's basically filled back up almost to 200 milliliter again. So now we got to put the bowl here and empty it out again. And we're looking at the light. We'll let the wiping blades kind of, you know, shove out all the liquid there that's coming out. We're gonna go ahead and close this again, and I'm gonna just let it run and sit there until basically no more liquid comes up and blocks up this feeding chute. Alright, so just want to give you guys a quick update. We've been running this a little bit longer, and if we open that up, pretty much nothing comes out. So now that's a sign to me that basically there's no more smoothie left. So let's go ahead and turn this off and take this machine apart and show you guys what's left in here. So in there, you guys can see there's not a lot of left in there, just maybe some pulp around the edges. If we take this main housing in here, inside here, we're just going to see the smoothie residues. If you just tip that down and open your pulp, your juice flap, if you get a little bit more juice in there. And then now we're going to go ahead and pop that auger out. And in this auger, because we did leave it in there, and once again, we're making a smoothie, the pulp is not flowing out anywhere. There's going to be significantly more pulp left in the auger, you know, than when you're making a juice. So actually, I can see all the little seeds of the strawberries, which is quite interesting in there. And you guys can see there's lots of pulp left in this cone here, and that's completely normal. Now if you guys do take this apart and there's still a lot of liquid in there, that means you did not run your juicer long enough to get all the liquid extracted out. To me, this seems pretty dry. Near the bottom is the driest, and up here in the top part of the auger, you know, this stuff is still kind of wet, and that's just normal. This is how the smoothie function works on the Kuvings. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and finish cleaning up, and we're going to come back at you and show you guys how you can make a nut milk in the Kuvings C7000 or other models. Alright, I'm back, and now I'm going to have the pleasure of showing you guys actually how you can make nut milk in the Kuvings. I'll post a link down below to a video I made previously at a trade show where I juiced nuts in the Kuvings. Basically, the way Kuvings recommends you do it, you take like 1 cup of nuts, you soak them overnight, and then I would pour off that soak water and then add back in maybe like 2 cups, 3 cups, or 4 cups of water, and then take a ladle and you're going to ladle out the soaked nuts. That's very important. You must soak the nuts with the almonds at the same time and pour them through the juicer. With the juicing screen installed like you were going to juice, the almond pulp will come out here and the juice will come out here, or the nut milk, sorry, will come out here. Now, that's not the way I like to make the nut milk, because I feel, and based on my testing, you lose a lot of the rich goodness, you know, so I like to do a pre-processed step using a blender, and by blending the nuts up with the water and then pouring that mixture through the juicer to extract the nut milk and separating out the fiber. This way I find you get a more rich, thick, and delicious nut milk. You know, I like to be different, and while I could be doing this with nuts today, I'm doing something, my favorite nut actually, which is technically not a nut, it's more like a fruit or a drupe. It's a coconut. So I've already taken out the water out of this coconut, and this is a mature coconut. We're going to go ahead and remove the meat, and with the coconut meat, we're going to go ahead and make coconut milk. and we're going to show you guys how to do that in the Kuvings best way possible. So I may speed this up because this is not necessarily a class on how to open a coconut or get the meat out. Alright, so I got all the coconut meat out of that coconut, and you know, I'm going to leave the testa or this brown part on. There's more nutrients in there in my opinion, although I'm not going to get that crystal clear, like nice white nut milk you may be used to, maybe more ruddy in color. But I'm good with that because I want the nutrition. It's more important to me than having something that like looks nice, white, and pretty, although you could take the time to shave it off if you wanted to. You know, I don't find it's worth it. That being said, I am cutting it up into smaller pieces so that the blender has a little bit easier time working on it. If you do add large chunks to the blender, it's generally not going to work as well. So we're just kind of going to dice these up, and we're going to come back at you when I'm ready to do the next step. Alright, so we got all that coconut meat cut up, and we're just going to go ahead and put it in the blender here. Now, I've already added actually 32 ounces of coconut water into the blender there. And so generally my recipe is 32 ounces of coconut water to 1 mature coconut. And so we're going to go ahead and throw that in there. Now I do want to mention once again that the juicer is set up with the yellow straining cone, which is the one for the juicing. So I want to mention that another attachment that comes with all the Kuvings models is this attachment here, and this is known as the sorbet attachment. This basically will allow you to basically make sorbets or grind up frozen fruits only. You know, this is not designed to grind up anything else other than frozen fruits due to the fact that it has that little Y in there. You know, I did try to use cabbage in this using this grinder, and it would not let the cabbage pass this grinder point. In addition, Kuvings designed this for processing only frozen fruits, and should you put anything other than frozen fruits with this attachment, and Kuvings finds out, it will void your warranty because that's not an authorized use for your juicer. In other brands of juicers, though, an attachment like this would be used to make something like the nut butters, although I cannot advise you to do that because, once again, it will void your warranty. I cannot advise you to use this for anything else other than the frozen fruits. And the frozen fruits should be frozen solid, and you should take them out of the freezer and let them thaw for a little bit before using. This attachment is included with the Kuvings, and the previous attachment, the Smoothie maker, is an option for certain models. With the EVO 820, it does come included. All right, so I want to mention that. And we got the water in here, we got the coconut in there, and next step is we're just going to go ahead and blend up in this blender. Now this is a vacuum blender, so how this works is we're just going to go ahead and put it on a vacuum, and what's going to happen is a motor comes on inside the machine and it sucks all the oxygen out of the container before blending. You know, I find this is the only way I like to blend these days in an oxygen deprived environment, so you don't get as much oxidation when blending. In addition, I find when you're blending fats under vacuum, it makes it a bit more fluffy, you know, and that's a nicer texture that I appreciate. Alright, now that we got the vacuum sucked out, we're just going to go ahead and blend this on high, and this has an auto program. But generally you want to get it blended up so that all the coconut is ground up. Now the reason why I'm doing this step is because the blender is a much more efficient device to grind things up in a liquid than the juicer. If you put the coconut meat with the water and ladle it in at the same time, you're not going to get as rich of and thick of a coconut milk. And in my opinion, you'd be wasting some of the delicious fat that would actually come out with the pulp instead of in the milk, which is where we want it. But of course, if you're on a low-fat diet, then you probably likely want to do it that way because you definitely get lower fat and you're going to be throwing a lot of rich goodness out with the pulp. I'll put a link down below to a video I made how to make almond milk and coconut milk easy, basically using the same technique in the Omega VSJ843, which is the vertical juicer I prefer. All right. All right, the blender's all done, so we could go ahead and pop this top off. We're going to take out this carafe, and we're going to go ahead and let the vacuum out. Sign of freshness, pop off this lid, tap that lid down, and now we're going to go ahead and do the next step, which is once again the juicer set up to juice. We're just going to go ahead and turn this machine on, and then we're just going to go ahead and take this mixture, and a little bit at a time. You don't want to overload the machine. We're just going to pour this down the throat of the machine. What's going to happen is, though, the coconut meat, which is the fiber that has been combined with the coconut water, which is the liquid, the juicer is now going to do an excellent job at separating out just the pulp, and this pulp that's coming out is pretty dry, and then we're going to get the milk over there. So, you know, while you could use a nut milk bag to do this, you know, I find that the juicer is a lot easier of a device to do that. Now, you know, we did load this up, and the pulp is kind of like sitting inside the housing there, and it's just rotating along the top. That's totally normal, that's fine. You're just going to let the juicer have some time to work. It doesn't extract it all in an instant. You know, as long as you have pulp flowing out of the bottom here at the pulp port, the machine is working, so just have some patience. You know, sometimes you may need to just pour this in and then maybe walk away for a couple, 5-10 minutes and come back, you know, when it's done extracting. Alright, so I thought I'd put a stopwatch on because it has been running a few minutes. I want to actually see how long this takes and show you guys in real time. I'm probably just going to pour the rest of this mixture in, and then I'm going to come back at you in a little bit when it's done processing. So it looks like it's done, and it's at 2 minutes and 49 seconds. I probably finished a little bit earlier. But how you will know it's done is when the pulp is stopped flowing out and the liquid is stopped flowing out also. Of course, inside the machine, this is totally to be expected. You know, there'll be remnants of the coconut mixture that you put in because it all didn't get completely wrung out. But I put in 32 ounces of coconut water in, plus the blended meat, and out in this measuring cup here. I have basically about 32 or 1,000 milliliters, which is like approximately 33 ounces. So I got about what I got put in is what I got out, pretty much. And let's go ahead, and I want to show you guys this consistency. Look at that. Man, that's nice milk consistency. We're going to go ahead and try this and let you guys know what it tastes like. My God, that is so delicious. Now, I'd probably use a sieve, an additional sieve, and sieve it out a little bit further. But for all practical purposes, man, this is super delicious. Want you guys to get off the cow's milk, coconut milk, super rich in medium chain triglycerides and monolaurin and all these other different cool nutrients. And it's a source of saturated fat on a plant-based diet, which can be important, although our bodies can make it ourselves. Super delicious. I think I might make a coconut curry with that actually tomorrow. Soup, alright? So yeah, that's how you can make a nut milk in the Kuvings. You know, the Kuvings, as I showed you guys today, can make juices, can make smoothies, can make nut milks, and I didn't show you the sorbet feature, you know, using that other clear attachment. That's another task it can do as well. Now, I really want to encourage you guys to get to know your juicer once you get it. You know, if things aren't working the exact way that I show in the videos and you bought it from me, please let me know. You know, I'm here to help you guys to make sure you use it properly. The biggest thing is, you know, most people have never used a vertical juicer in their lives before, and everybody has their own ideas about how to use it. Like, oh, I'm just going to throw the stuff in there, it's going to work. Well, I mean, you would think that it would work if you just threw the stuff in there, because that just is logical. But the fact of the matter is that you need to use it a certain way, much like your husband or wife. You know, they like when you do certain things, right? And if you don't do those certain things, then they get upset. And likewise, you know, if you don't use a juicer properly, it's going to get upset. It's going to make more pulp in the juice. It may clog or jam back up and do all these crazy things. But I want you guys to have some patience with it, to get to learn it, to get to know it. More importantly, watch my videos and follow all the techniques to the T, to the letter that I show. I mean, if I cut and recommend cutting it to an 1/8 inch, don't cut it an inch, don't cut it 2 inches, cut it to what I say. Follow the procedures I say. Don't use your pusher. Give it some time to work, you know. select your firm, hard fruits to juice, right? Always follow soft things with the firm things like the carrots or other root vegetables. This will ensure that you have a better time juicing. Adjust your juice recipes accordingly. And if you do all these things, and don't forget to pre-cut your greens and your ginger, and you put things in the right order, you're going to have a great time using the juicer. And, you're going to love it like I do. I love juicing. I love making my fresh juices, my fresh coconut milk. There's no other machine that I know that could, you could easily make juices and coconut milks in the comfort of your own home. Super simple, super easy, with just a few minutes of cleanup at the end. All right. So hope this episode has helped you guys out. If you guys appreciate this episode, if you guys have learned from it, have gained from it, if you're now not going to not buy a large feed chute because you have to pre-cut your greens, you know what? Then I've done my job. I want to let you guys know before you buy your juicer what is expected of you, the owner of the juicer, to get the best use out of it. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine. Get a juicer such as a horizontal where you don't have to pre-cut, that you could shove everything in almost as fast as you want to. But even on the horizontals, you should slow down because you can't cause screen breakage if you go too fast. And I'm just here to show you guys actually how to do it, what works, so that you guys could be successful. There's no other online retailer that I'm aware of that puts out as much content as I do on a daily basis to ensure that you succeed, to ensure you get the right juicer for you. And I care so much that, if a customer's having some challenges, I'll make a video like this to try to explain, to help them so that they could use the machine properly. Big box retailers, they're not going to do this. They're not juicing experts. I probably run more produce through juicers than anybody else in the business selling juicers in this day and age. And I use my experience to help you guys, number one, select the right juicer, but number two, I'm here to support you before and even after the sale, by answering your guys' questions to get you guys literally unstuck if your juicer gets unstuck, or to ensure that you're going to use it the right way to get the best performance out of it. Because here's the thing, I don't do any fancy camera work. I'm not a magician. I don't have any fancy editing skills. If I show something on a video and that's how it works, that's how it really works. But you got to follow my exact procedures. I'm not trying to make stuff up. I'm not trying to blow what up your butt. I'm just here to show you guys what works, what doesn't, and let you guys be empowered consumers and make the choice. I would hope if you guys are also empowered consumers, you have the choice of where to purchase from, and you choose to purchase from me so that I can continue to make these videos, continue to buy my coconuts and my produce, and make these videos and stay in business so I can help out other people who are wanting to get on a juicing lifestyle and help them select the right juicer for you. In addition, I'm also here to help you guys get warranty service from the manufacturers. So, the warranty is covered by the manufacturers, and if you buy from anywhere else, the retailer is going to say, just contact the company, they need to handle the warranty, and yes, I'll say that too. The warranty is handled by the manufacturer. So in this case, Kuvings, Kuvings takes care of the warranty, and the first step, chain of command, is contact Kuvings if you have challenges with your juicer, it's not working properly, or there's a part that's damaged or broken that is no fault of your own. If you damaged it, then of course that's not covered under warranty. And if Kuvings does not help you, then let me know. I have special connections. Actually, the president of Kuvings in the USA, he's a person, I know him personally, and if one of my customers is not getting satisfaction from Kuvings when they call directly, let me know the problem. As long as it's a legitimate warranty claim, I'll escalate this issue and make sure you guys are taken care of. And this is something that I'm not aware of any other juicer company in the US can do for you guys. In addition, I'm here to also answer your questions after the sale should you have challenges, and I want to get you guys up and running properly. And of course, before you buy the juicer, please contact me if you're not sure about what juicer to buy. I need to know what you're juicing, the specific recipes, because some juicers work better at juicing certain items than others. So I want to know all the different recipes, including ingredients and amounts of each ingredient. And then also, please let me know the qualities or the features in a juicer that you desire the most, and order them in order of importance. If I have this list, I can run it through my supercomputer in my brain, because I have used so many different appliances and devices, and spit out the machine that, in my opinion, will do the best job for you. And I could sell you the expensive one, and that's great, but if it's not warranted, if you don't need the expensive one because you don't want to clean it a lot, I'm not going to recommend that to you. I'm not going to sell you the most expensive one. Sometimes I might recommend you guys a cheap one. I don't really care about the price. What I care about is you guys get the best performing machine for your specific needs. And if the only way I'm going to know that is if you guys tell me your needs, I can share with you guys the machine I think would be best for you. Of course, I want to empower you guys to do your own research. You know, I have over 500 videos on this YouTube channel sharing and comparing and contrasting all the different major brand juices on the market so that you guys could see what happens for yourself and determine what juicer is the best for you. You know, and if you still need guidance, let me know. I'm here to help, all right? So if you guys enjoyed this episode, hey, please give this video a thumbs up. Also be sure to share this video with other people that are having challenges using their 3-inch wide feed chute juicer, or if they're considering buying a 3-inch wide feed chute juicer so they could learn some of the pros and cons about it. In addition, make sure you click the little subscribe button right down below so you're missing out on my new and upcoming episodes that come out about every 5 to 7 days. You never know where I'll share what we'll be learning or what new juicers I'll be comparing on my channel or what kind of new hints and tips I'll be sharing with you guys like I did today. Make sure to click the little bell so you get notified as my new videos come out. Finally, be sure to check my past episodes. My past episodes are a wealth of knowledge. Over 500 episodes at this time on this YouTube channel dedicated to comparing and contrasting and showing you guys all the different appliances that allow you to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables because they are simply the healthiest foods on the planet based on my research. So with that, my name is John Kohler with DiscountJuicers.com. Be sure to visit DiscountJuicers.com/YouTube for special promotional offers for YouTube visitors.